with a W card, a fun fold card. And it is called a W because when you look at it from the side, it has a W piece on the inside of the card. Now, you can make them horizontal like this, but I have chosen to make this a vertical one. So let me show you right quick how to make this. It's very cute and very easy. So I've used the Nature's Prints. This is all Stampin' Up! Stuff, but you, of course, can use whatever you want. I'm going to show you how to make the card itself. You're going to start with a basic piece of cardstock. It's just a regular size, so 4 1/4 by 11. And the first thing you'll do is score and fold it at 5 1/2, just like, you would any other card, because the only part about this card that's different is the inside mechanism. Okay, so now that I have that done, I'm going to make the W mechanism itself, and that is a 1 3/4 by 11-inch piece of cardstock. I like it in the same color as the card base, but you can, do however you want. And then we're just going to score and fold at 2 3/4, 5 1/2, and 8 1/4. And then I can put my score tool away because that's all we're going to need it for today. Now, the way you make this is we're going to have the center score is going to be folded in half as a, let's call it a valley. Although when you see it in the card, it's actually going to be a mountain. So we'll call it that just to make life easier. And then the other two scores, the more critical part is that the other two scores are folded in the opposite direction. So let's do that right quick. And whenever you're making a fun fold, really be careful with your folding. Go ahead and make sure everything is really straight. And remember the old saying, it's paper, make it do what you need it to do. Okay, so there we have our mechanism. You can see the W. We have a valley, a mountain, and a valley. And that's just going to adhere to the inside of this card in a few minutes. All right, so the first thing I want to do before I do that is I'm going to put a couple of pieces of DSP. This is the new Pretty Prints from Stampin' Up! It's coming out in May. Normally I would mat these panels, but there's a lot of thickness already on this card. You're already going to have a little extra postage bump if you're not delivering it by hand. So I would recommend that you skip the mat on this piece. So these are 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And I'm just going to adhere them. I like to use liquid glue, but you can use whatever adhesive you are most comfortable with. And we're just going to line it up and adhere it to the inside of the card. Okay, and then I think we'll just go ahead and do it on the other side. Let's do that. 2 of each. And then I'm going to give you a tip about doing these. The first couple that I made, I put all of the inside mechanism in, and then I did my card front. And that's just a little awkward. So I recommend that you get to this point and then build your card front, okay? Because it's a lot easier adhering things to this when it's not quite so bulky. So we'll set that aside for just a second. I've done a little pre-cutting and pasting for you because, you don't need to watch that. I've got more of the Pretty Prints. This is matted on Petal Pink. I really like this color combo. So it's Evening Evergreen, Soft Succulent, and Petal Pink. And then I have a smaller piece coordinating. And I'm just going to adhere that to the front of the card, again, with liquid glue. And again, you can use whatever adhesive makes you most comfortable. All right. And I have, this die set has a very nice label, and so I've cut that with Petal Pink, and I'll just adhere it with liquid glue. Obviously, this has really nothing at all to do with the W fold, but I wanted to get the card front done so that I had some shot of making it all come together and not look like it was really, really hard, because it's really, really not, okay? And then I've got some leaves and things that I have cut, some in white, some in soft succulent, and obviously I have a little glue on my fingers, and they're going everywhere, so I'm just going to adhere these with more liquid glue, like so. And then I have a little sentiment that's going to go on here, and a bow, and we'll be done with the card front, and we can adhere it, and then we can get to the mechanism itself, the mechanism. Alrighty. So I'm using liquid glue and I'm just doing a few little dots. You can decorate this however. The beauty of this is, of course, you can do whatever you want. I'll give you a couple of little tips when we get to the inside to be sure that you are successful with this fold, which made it sound like it was really hard, huh? But it's not. Sorry. I did not mean to make it sound like it was hard because it is not. But with everything, there's a little, a way to do it easy and a way to do it hard. Right? And I want you to do it easy. Let's have it be easy. Okay, a little more liquid glue to get this last little dude on here. And we're going to slide him down in like that. Okay, now I have a sentiment that is obviously from Nature's Prince. And what I'm going to do, this is how I like to put these things on because I know it's going to cover this whole center. So I put my Stampin' Dimensionals. If y'all know me at all, you know I love my dimensionals. So I'm going to put those on there because I know that the circle is going to cover them. Oops. I know that the circle is going to cover them. There we go. And then I'm going to pull these little covers off. My goodness. Some days my fingers and my brain do not communicate well. I don't know why. Okay, there we go. And then I'm just going to stick this on over top. Be nice if the sentiment was straight, Mary. There we go. Okay. Now, you'll be glad to know I pre-tied a bow with some white baker's twine, just so that I wouldn't sit here and look like I have the most uncoordinated fingers on the planet, which sometimes I do. And I'm just going to adhere this with a little bit of liquid glue. You could use a glue dot, but I have found that with these little tiny bows and little tiny knots, it's a little hard to get them tiny enough to not stick out. Okay, so that's my card front. We'll trim that off just to make life easier. And then I'm going to use the liquid glue to adhere it to the front of my card. And this is where it becomes much nicer to not have that mechanism on the inside. Just because everything is a little flatter. Flatter is good. Okay. Isn't that pretty with the petal pink and soft succulent? I do love that combination right there. Okay, now let's show you how to do this. Remember, this is vertical, so you're going to want to make it vertical. Nothing really is different. Even if you were doing horizontal, this would go in exactly the same way. It becomes vertical when you decorate it, okay? So we're going to put liquid glue on these two ends. Jeez. Okay, just some liquid glue. And I don't use a ton near the edges because it squishes, but you want to use enough. And here's a little tip. So I'm using a piece of grid paper, and I've got the top of the card lined up with a grid line. So based on this measurement and the card's measurement, I know that if I come down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and put the top of the mechanism right there, then I will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the bottom, which means I have split the difference, okay? So I'm going to make sure it's lined up, make sure this edge is straight with the card base, and give it a second to hold. All right, and here I really do recommend liquid glue so you have a few seconds to wiggle it around, okay? If you use Stampin' Seal or another tape runner kind of an adhesive, you won't have very much time to play with it. So I've just put some liquid glue on. I'm lining up again with the top of my grid, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, and I'm pulling it all the way out to the edge, okay? So you want that to come all the way to the edge of the card, and you can see that this corner is lined with that grid mark, which makes it completely straight right across there. And instantly you have the W fold of the card. Okay, so now all that's left to do is decorate this. We have a whole bunch of places to decorate. I've used the new stylish shapes. I've used the next to largest square, and I've done a little bit of pre-stamping just to save a little time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one matted piece, this is petal pink again, down here at the bottom. And that's going to have a sentiment. And then I'll have, let me move those out the way. Then I'm going to have a piece here that's going to have a couple of die cuts. And then I have another sentiment that coordinates with the theme of my card. And then we'll have like so. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and adhere these with some liquid glue again. Like so. And again, if just The only thing that you would do differently here if you were making this as a horizontal is you would turn everything this way, right? That's the only difference. So you can make this vertical or horizontal just by doing what I'm doing right here, okay? I do think you should take the time because, you know, it makes it nicer if everything is lined up. So if these edges are all lined up for you there, and then kind of split the difference between the score lines, between this score line and this score line. And then just repeat all the way up. Not very difficult. Try not to get too carried away with your adhesive because you don't want it to squish out and make it so that your mat sticks to the back of the card, especially right there. It doesn't matter so much up here, but on these two that are supposed to be movable, then you want it to be movable. And we'll get this last one on like so. All right. There we go. And then I've got a couple of die cuts. I cut out some of these little doohickeys. This is a doohickey, and then we have another doohickey that looks like a flower. These are in Evening Evergreen and Petal Pink. And so I have the flower, and this little guy is a little bit long because you don't want your embellishments to extend past where the card is going to need to fold, okay? Because if you do it, it won't fold. Well, it'll fold, but it's going to bend everything up. So what I do if I have a little bit too long is I'm just going to cut the bottom off like that. Make it very artistically rounded. I stamped this with Soft Succulent, and then I colored it with my Petal Pink Stampin' Blend. And all I'm going to do here is just adhere it with a little bit of liquid glue down near the bottom of the stem, making sure that this does not extend past the fold and this does not extend past that fold. And then I'm just bringing the little stems together. And I have another little bow. This one is tinier. And yes, I know it's a little bit out of the box to put a bow on the inside, but I thought, what the heck? What's the worst that could happen? Well, I suppose the worst that could happen is it would have not folded, but it did. It worked. So there we go. Oh, there we go. Stick down there, little bugger. Okay, there we go. And then I'm just going to leave that alone for half a second so it can dry and think about what it's done. And then up here I've got two of the die cuts, like I used the Soft Succulent on the front, but these are in white. Why did I do that? I don't know. Because I could. And I'm just going to adhere them like so to this top piece. And this little piece of twine just really, really wants to get in this card. Okay, here we go. And we'll just go like so. Again, the niceness of liquid glue is it gives you a few minutes to play with your design if you don't love it. Again, the only trick here is you want the top of your die cut to be inside your card and the bottom of the die cut to not interfere with that fold. So that's all I'm going to do there. I'm not going to put another bow. And I have some rhinestones here that I've colored with my dark Evening Evergreen Stampin' Blend. And I'm going to put a couple of those. Oh, I forgot my sentiment. Oh, goodness. Here, let's put that on. Let's put that on first, okay? So all I have is a sentiment that I cut with one of the new Stylish Shapes label dies. And I'm going to adhere this across the bottom piece like so with some more liquid glue. And then I will adhere one of my Stampin' Blends colored rhinestones. And then I'm going to put another couple up along these little guys up here. Why? Well, why not? Because they're pretty. And no card doesn't need a little bit of bling. Okay, so there's the inside. I'll go ahead and snip this a little bit. That doesn't need to be huge. It really won't hurt anything. I mean, you know, it's going to fold up when you fold your card. And then we'll go ahead and put one more rhinestone on the sentiment on the front. And there you go. There is your W fold in vertical mode. And I will also be decorating an envelope. And since I think I have a little time, I will go ahead and do that right quick. I do like to decorate envelopes to coordinate with my cards. I'm going to stamp the fern in Evening Evergreen. Put this away so I don't have an inkatastrophe, and then I'll stamp the frond. I'm calling this a frond. I don't know if that's what it is, but that's what I'm calling it. I'm going to stamp it once in Soft Succulent and again without re-inking so that we get a little depth on the front of the envelope. And then we'll decorate the envelope flap with a little bit of liquid glue. And all you do for this is roll a line of liquid glue kind of around the edge, not right at the edge, but near the edge. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then take a piece. This is about 3 by 6. We'll put this on like so. Give it a little rub, a rub-a-dub-a-dub. And then we'll do the easiest fussy cut ever and trim this off with our paper snips. Remember, when you're cutting, you want to push the paper up to the fulcrum of those scissors. That's this part right there. And you want to turn the paper with your other hand versus turning the scissors. And if you try those two things, I think you will have much success in fussy cutting. So watch, I'm going to turn that corner by turning the paper with my other hand, not the scissors. And there you go. One each W in the vertical format. All right, hope you've enjoyed it. Give it a go. Thanks.